Hey guys, it's Mrs. Conley with this week's First Chapter Friday. I have a good one for you this week. We are going to be taking a peek at Chomp by Carl Hiaasen. We have a couple of Carl Hiaasen's books in our library, including Hoot and Scat and a few others. Carl Hiaasen typically writes mystery books that are very, very funny. He usually writes about people who are kind of like backwoods, Florida, a little bit country, not super, super well refined, but he definitely does it in a humorous way. So let's talk a little bit about our book this week. Our main character in Chomp is a boy named Wahoo, whose family is very unusual because his dad's job is that he is a wild animal wrangler. So they have all kinds of unusual animals on their property, things that you and I probably don't have in our houses. And companies like Disney and Lubriderm Skin Lotion and all of these other famous, lots of restaurants and all kinds of brands come to his dad to use his animals, things like alligators and iguanas and armadillos or whatever, in their commercials and marketing and movies and things like that. So, Wahoo's family is going through a little bit of a financial hardship. So, his mom actually is fluent in Mandarin. So, she actually is over in China teaching a bunch of American businessmen how to speak the language who are going to be living there. So, mom is kind of out of the picture. And while it's just dad and Wahoo at home, dad suffers an injury. So Florida gets a cold snap, and this is actually something that actually happens. I don't know if you've heard of this or not. My mom lives in South Florida, and this is a true thing. But when Florida gets a little bit of a cold snap with their weather, the iguanas, who are not used to the cold temperatures, freeze to death. And a lot of times iguanas sleep up in trees. So the iguanas freeze to death and then they fall out of trees. And this is again a true thing. Well, in our story, Wahoo's dad is out kind of taking care of his animals, working around the yard, and one of these dead frozen iguanas falls out of the tree and hits his father in the head, and his dad gets concussed. And as a result, he can't work. So they're kind of going through a financial hardship, and now dad's out of a job. So, long story short, Wahoo ends up agreeing to do this job for this company that they have TV shows on, like a Discovery Channel kind of thing, where it's like a wilderness survival type of show. And the guy, the main character, is this total fake, but he tries to come off as real macho and outdoorsy, and it's the whole thing is just ridiculous. So let's jump in. I'm going to read you the beginning of chapter 1. I really love this book. I love Carl Hiaasen in general, and I think a lot of our Palmer students will too. So here we go. Mickey Cray had been out of work ever since a dead iguana fell from a pine tree and hit him on the head. The iguana, which had died during a hard freeze, was stiff as a board and weighed 7.5 pounds. Mickey's son had measured the lifeless lizard on a fishing scale, then packed it on ice with turtle veggies in a cooler behind the garage. This was after the ambulance had hauled Mickey off to the hospital, where the doctor said he had a serious concussion and ordered him to take it easy. And to everyone's surprise, Mickey did take it easy. That's because the injury left him with double vision and terrible headaches. He lost his appetite and dropped 19 pounds and lay around on the couch all day watching nature programs on television. "I'll never be the same," he told his son. "Knock it off, Pop," said Wahoo, Mickey's boy. Mickey had named him after Wahoo McDaniel, a professional wrestler who once played linebacker for the Dolphins. Mickey's son often wished he'd been called Mickey Jr. or Joe or even Rupert, anything but Wahoo, which was also a species of saltwater fish. It was a name that was hard to live up to. People expected somebody called Wahoo to act loud and crazy, but that wasn't Wahoo's style. Apparently, nothing could be done about the name until he was all grown up, at which point he intended to go to the Cutler Ridge courthouse and tell a judge he wanted to be called something normal. "Pop, you're going to be okay," Wahoo would tell his father every morning. "Just hang in there." Looking up with the hound dog eyes from the couch, Mickey Cray would say, "Whatever happens, I'm glad we ate that bleepin' lizard." On the day that his dad had come home from the hospital, Wahoo had defrosted the dead iguana and made a peppercorn stew, which his mom had wisely refused to touch. Mickey had insisted that eating the critter that had dented his skull would be a spiritual remedy. Big medicine, he'd predicted. But the iguana had tasted awful, and Mickey Cray's headaches only got worse. Wahoo's mother was so concerned that she wanted Mickey to see a brain specialist in Miami, but Mickey refused to go. Meanwhile, people kept calling up with new jobs, and Wahoo was forced to send them to other wranglers. His father was in no condition to work. After school, Wahoo would feed the animals, clean out their pens and cages. The backyard was literally a zoo. Gators, snakes, parrots, rats, mice, monkeys, raccoons, tortoises, and even a bald eagle, which Mickey had raised from a fledgling after its mother was killed. Treat 'em like royalty, Mickey would instruct Wahoo, because the animals were quite valuable. Without them, Mickey would be unemployed. All right, guys. So basically, they end up taking, I don't want to give away too much, but Wahoo and his dad end up taking on this gig to kind of make more money for the family. And as they're in the Everglades filming this like nature show, um, Wahoo befriends this girl whose name is Tuna, who has a really pretty terrible home life. And that's where like the mystery element kind of comes into play in this one. So if you're not somebody who typically reads mystery, but you like funny books or you like books about animals, this might be a good book to kind of get you hooked into mystery a little bit. It is found in our mystery section under HIA for Hiaasen. I hope you enjoy. Happy reading.